Yeah, so I'm a co-founder, the managing partner over at Overlang. Yes, sir. Yeah, thank you for having me. This is gonna be fun. Yeah, sure. So grew up as a Navy brat in Virginia Beach, Virginia. Went to college for 5 minutes in Ohio. Because you have to drop out of college if you want to start a business. That's the secret. But uh, did the traditional thing, I suppose. But anyways, from there, made my way out to Orange County, California, then LA, then Scottsdale, and now finally here in Denver. So all over the place, but that's kind of, if you look at the career path, what we were talking about a little bit before the show is, the progression from, freelance writing, content writing to the C-suite is not a common path and certainly has a lot of steps along the way. But, um, somebody that if I had to describe myself, which is the worst thing to be asked to do, but if I had to, I'd say that, the my focus is learning and earning, figuring out how to give back, build systems, be able to solve challenges and do it in a way that's rewarding for me, but also rewarding for the people around me. And so, number one, I mean, all of the success I've had in life, it's team oriented. There's nobody in my experience that succeeds alone, unless they're a jerk. And generally, the jerks don't get too far. They end up with very few people that want to work with them. Um, so yeah, I'm really lucky, and at the same time, really hardworking, but focused on things that generally help you move beyond where you're at in terms of staging, in terms of career, and we can unpack all of that. But that's the short version of me, and yeah. So Overlang, and then Overlang Venture Partners, where I'm at currently. My buddy, I can unpack that here if that makes sense. Yeah, perfect. So yeah, so that happened about little over, well, maybe a little under a year ago. Time flies, but basically, when I got out here to Denver, I moved out here to take advantage of some opportunities at the Denver Tech Center, which is a huge area of tech here in Colorado. And a lot of the recruiters I was talking to after exiting Launch Medical, they were lining me up with interviews out here. So I figured, well, I really like the area. I have friends out here, so might as well explore. Because if there's anything about my past, I'm not afraid to move and explore. So got out here, had a massive health event that kind of took things in a very unexpected direction. So all of a sudden, you think you have your next chapter figured out. You think you have this idea of the things you've been looking at through the store window, so to speak, of like what you want next. And um, those options didn't make sense based on my limitations. So at that point, my buddy Jeff and I get together. Now, Jeff's worked in AI for the last 10 years. So very different background from me. I'm more operational and marketing. He's much more on the tech and the building side. So, a couple of our friends like to call us Steve and Woz. And that really annoys me because I'm not a big Steve Jobs fan, but there's some truth to it. There's a sense of, two people coming together who have the ability to build and the ability to communicate and grow. And so the good thing is, so Jeff and I made Eagle Scout back in Virginia Beach. Yeah, I mean, we've known each other forever. And um, so being able to build something around your limitations with your best friends and bringing along people for that ride, that's really how Overlang started. And we've from there followed the dollars. We've figured out, okay, you can absolutely destroy a business by throwing too much money at it and trying to solve problems that are in your head that you think the market cares about. You need to follow what the market says. And so we we focused on primarily legal marketing or law firms, focused on medical clinics, small practice, and then 3PLs, which are these massive shipping companies that support all the e-commerce businesses out there. So if you're ordering something from a random website or even Amazon in some cases, a 3PL is probably involved in that transfer, either with transportation or warehousing or fulfillment, whatever the case may be. So anyways, those are the things that we have been able to focus on and really network and nurture our relationships because we both are, I like to think good people who have done good work with good people. And so when you have that in your past, all of a sudden, when you're looking to build something, you don't really have to put up with all the same limitations that maybe you would have to in an earlier phase of life. Yeah. Well, when we were working together before meeting up today, I was thinking through what is a simple way to explain the value, but also the opportunity in the things I want to share. Because again, in this chapter of my life, my focus is more legacy than making a bunch of money tomorrow. And so, if there's a way for me to give back value, and I think for me, because I was in the content writing side, then the customer experience side, then the operational side, being able to look at an organization as it grows and as it scales and play different roles based on what makes sense on a growing team. And we went from 5 to 10 people to 60 people while I was there, and so that's a challenge. Speaking, of course, of Launch Medical and that passed, but yeah. So when I look at how do you describe value, dollars seem obvious, but also okay, great, you achieved the dollars, but can you do it with less? And I think most of us are dealing with less than we want in whatever chapter we're in. We always want more. We want more. We want that easy button, and I don't think that easy button exists. I think the fallacy is like if you just throw money at the problem, you can solve it. Well, there's plenty of evidence that doesn't work. So instead, what the broad strokes of the blueprint that I didn't come up with. I was just on the team that did. And, my goal is always to be the dumbest person in the room because if you are, you're going to have a really good time. First off, you're going to learn a lot of things, but hopefully you're able to ask the questions that take the conversation in a direction that pulls more wisdom out of all the smart people around you and guides the conversation organizationally towards a win. So, in that sense, what we learned is if instead of trying to sell people, so like, the med tech space, in the men's health space specifically, that's a unique animal because you're regulated very heavily by the FDA. So you can't just go out there and make bold claims. And at the same time, you have to show medical efficacy, but also protect your IP. And so there's a lot of things you can say, there's a lot of things you can't say, and there's a lot of nuance. But what I learned more than anything through that journey, and we tried a lot of things that didn't work, but the thing that did work was we were able to start nurturing leads into our funnel, which is pretty basic. All you're doing is matching a landing page with ad copy that works and gets your desired audience to click. And then hopefully you have a really good landing page that perfectly matches the intent of the people clicking that ad. But from there, having them take a quiz so that you can learn a little bit about them, but also they learn more about your product in an interactive way. And then once they're in at that point, they have to give their email to get the results of the quiz. So on the plus side, if you email them the results, now you've just got an open rate on their inbox. So you're more likely to have Gmail and Yahoo and all the big email companies forward your emails to the inbox rather than the spam box. So that was one thing we kind of tweaked and figured out. But the other thing is once we have their email, once we've given them the results, only maybe 3 to 6 or 8% really convert within 1 year from being a lead to a customer. So you have to keep that math in mind. But what you can do is you can educate and nurture. And what you have to resist is the urge. There's sometimes an urge to slap the funnel, and what that means is your urge to just generate a ton of revenue really quickly by just giving some insane offer that's going to get all these people sitting on the fence to buy, 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 buy. And the problem with that is you destroy marginal value. I mean, you end up reducing your profitability on all your sales. But on top of that, you also end up having people purchase the product that might not have been the right fit for the product, but they're responding to the offer, not the actual solution. And so again, I go back to you have to educate across the finish line. You have to be able to nurture and explain and do it in a way that's authentic. And it's less about storytelling. It's more about, at least in the med tech space, it's more about let me help you understand that you do have a problem. You're not alone. Everybody has this problem. But also there's a solution that doesn't require injections or medication or all these other things. We can do this a better way, and now you can do it at home thanks to this invention. So those things, and that conversation was really interesting in learning how to nurture. And again, I go back to the various hats I wore. You know, those gave me the ability to have a perspective from different places in the organization. And so when decisions were made, it was not just, okay, I think that's a good idea. I read in a book somewhere. It was, okay, I know the team that's going to execute this. I know them well. And I know where their strengths and weaknesses are. So if we're going to do these things, how do we set them up for success? And that kind of knowledge is really hard to get because it takes time. But if you have it, it's one of the superpowers to unlock your organizational capabilities. Yeah, well, it was the educational funnel I was kind of explaining a moment ago. The ability to go after leads, not sales, on the top of the funnel was a big mover. We also had a lot of effort, and again, I say we because it was very much a team effort. And I have to give credit, Dan Steiner, who's our chief marketing officer, absolutely brilliant individual. And then also the other folks, Rick Claspy, who's the engineer who kind of fixed things when they fell apart on the tech side and the product side, which thankfully didn't happen too often. But these are kind of people that when they're talking, you listen because they're people who can explain something that you have very little experience over, and but you've got to be able to pull all that together. And so again, I go back to that educational funnel was a big one. We also had a huge effort to reach out to influencers. Some of those in like the adult entertainment space because they were already using our product, and so being able to translate that, but doing it in a classy way. Because again, we're trying to communicate white glove. This is just like a doctor's office kind of feeling. We're not trying to communicate the the less savory side of the world. That wasn't really our brand, but it was something that we navigated and learned how to leverage without harming the brand. And so, in those moments where you're meeting with people, building relationships, following the audience, figuring out who has that level of influence and who has the ability to reach people, and figure out a way to reward them very heavily, through rev share and other things. Um, but yeah, between the educational funnel and the referral outreach or the influencer outreach, those were the things that really moved the needle for us. And more than anything, it was on Facebook. That was probably our most profitable, actually, certainly our most profitable channel. Yeah, so well, first off, it's a nightmare because, even a year ago, AI was pretty close to being really helpful in a lot of ways. But the challenge has been and always will be, how can you set it up so that you can afford to use it, you can afford to scale? And so when Jeff and I were sitting down, just, coming up with ideas and throwing ideas at the wall of like, how do we take technology, operational excellence, marketing solutions, all these things, how do we bring this and distill it down to where the average SME can really benefit and, level the playing field so that the guys that are kind of in the middle of the pack, have the ability to compete with the big guys and at the same time not get wiped out by a more innovative little guy. So how do we do that? And so we started with, well, let's just build a funnel. I mean, I know the men's health space, so we'll do something called Male Cheat Code. That was our initial prototype, and so we built the site. We built this really cool AI solution where what it looks like is you still hit the same landing page, but the landing page morphs based on what you clicked on. So traditionally, you could do that through A/B testing. You could do that through having different versions of the landing page based on um, what people were clicking on, but that was very static and there was some smart in it. You could get it to serve up things based on data, but when you allow AI to play more of a role, AI is going to know and hopefully connect into some data sources. And all these companies right now, data is the new product they're selling. I mean, you can go to Home Depot and buy a lawnmower. uh, Home Depot's happy about the lawnmower, but they're also really happy that you're part of their rewards program and that they get to sell your data to people like me. So, that's just one example out there. And I'm not singling out Home Depot. I mean, it's just the Home Depots of the world. It's these big retailers that used to be focused on their product that they sell, and then they realized there's this whole data stream here. So, anyways, so with AI, you can take that context, that information, doesn't mean I know your address, doesn't mean like I know your name and what your search history is, but it does mean that the unique token, the unique number kind of assigned to you in the back end and the brokerage system, that information is pumped in. And so it allows for a landing page to be tweaked. But that's cool and that's exciting and you need the conversion. But what's really important that AI does way better than any, click funnel quiz can do is it can have a conversation with you that navigates based on what you talk about versus a set of questions. So instead of like 5 or 6 questions that are static, you can have dynamic conversation. So all that was really cool and seemed like a really cool idea in our head. So we built this, and uh, as we tested it, we realized that just to use that technology and do that, just the test data we put through is almost $800 in compute to be able to leverage all the really cool things we came up with. So that means that it doesn't work because you can't afford to scale at that point. Um, so we went dark for about 6 months almost and kind of focused on that problem because we said, if we're going to solve the challenges that businesses are experiencing, this is one we're experiencing. We can't solve it with off the shelf solutions. So while we talk a lot about AI and it's well earned, I mean, we've done a lot of innovation in, the private AI infrastructure space for our companies and the groups that we partner with. Um, we also have that background from a financial standpoint, HR, operational, and what that allows us to do is sit down and do a 360-degree view of the business and understand how to build a solution that you can afford to use, number one, but number two, it actually fits your culture, your organization. It's not something that you're having to adapt your business to. It adapts to you instead, and that has been a big difference in terms of getting ROI faster and being able to really move the needle in ways that actually matter versus just look good in a pitch. Well, the smart ones know what to do with it. They're selling it. So they're going to brokerages, they're going to or data brokers, and they're uploading all their information, and they're doing it in a way that's respectful of privacy. Because people, it's natural you get weirded out when you hear like somebody's selling my information. What that means is they're selling a unique identifier that comes back to like a cookie or a pixel or something that was, on your device that you opted into. And it doesn't tell me who you are, it doesn't tell me where you live, but it tells me based on the user activity, this is the kind of messaging, this is the kind of information. You can kind of play detective with that information and say, okay, this is how I might be able to craft a better message. So again, smart guys are selling it and doing it ethically. They're getting opt-in consent, all that stuff. The other side, I think internally, is you have data silos, and that's an area where we've used AI to fix. The conversation so often comes back to AI because it's the hot thing right now, but it's such a game changer and it's hard not to talk about. And so when you look at all the data silos that companies have, so you have information in your ordering system, whether it's like BigCommerce or Shopify. You have information in your warehousing system, your fulfillment partner, your 3PL partner. They have information and data. You have information in your drive, your cloud, all these places, between the hard drives, the clouds, the software, all these places that information exists. Until just now, we never had the opportunity to go in and actually grab that information from all of those sources and use it contextually. But it's very dangerous, in my opinion, to do that with a public system. So that's again where private AI infrastructure is much more interesting to me and much more valuable, because instead of just sending off all the things to ChatGPT or Gemini and saying, hey, process all this, well, they pinky swear and promise they won't keep a copy on their servers, but they do, and not maliciously. They're not keeping a copy necessarily of the entire data set you sent, but they're keeping part of it in their cache to reduce their costs. So by default, all these guys are copying some of your data. You just have to hope pinky promise they're not going in there and looking at it. And so I'm not a big fan of relying on those systems to dive into all of my different data sets. Instead, I like to use a private system, something built on AWS, for example, that you have control over, you own it, and you're able to then securely connect it to all those data sources. And that's what the big players are doing right now, or at least the ones that are going to become bigger players in the future. They're figuring out how to connect all the data sources, be able to query it from different places in the organization. So, an executive is going to have different access and different needs than a back office or a frontline employee. And then obviously a customer is going to have very different needs for self-service than those other groups. So you have to be able to not only connect the things, but you have to be able to create the portal that allows these different groups to organize and ask questions and query it to make them more valuable. So that's the goal: is how do we 10x the value of every employee in an organization? And so for us, if we can go in and we can throw some money at the problem, but we can also throw some talent and some execution expertise that allows us to really help our partners grow. Sure. Yeah, so I'll push back a little bit and say, venture partner. And we are very precise when we chose that term, because to us it means something more than just money. It means executional expertise. It means the ability to be that business owner's best friend very long term. And that's the focus, because what we're building is, our goal is not to exit in a year or 2 years and hockey stick each organization we're a part of. Our goal is to build long-term value, and you have to invest in moats to do that. If you're, and that takes time. You've got to make sure you have the IP in line. You have to make sure you have the digital assets in line. You have to make sure that you have the right talent in house, and so those all require investments of time and capital. So if you're going to do those things, why not work with a partner that's going to give you the space as a founder to do those things the right way without the pressure of, we have to hit these numbers this quarter? So that's one piece, and that's why I use the term venture partner. The other piece is, again, my focus right now is on legacy, and there are days where I'm not healthy enough to work, and there's days where I'm Superman and I get a lot done. So the focus for me and the venture partnership is also the idea that the people I bring along on the journey, the people that are worthwhile, that are good people that I've known for over a decade, worked with, trust their expertise, but also who they are as a person. Those are the people that I want to be part of this. And so slowly but surely, we're pulling all these really great people into Overlang, primarily based on what our partners need, but also as we grow and as we figure out new opportunities to chase and build. But again, venture partner, it's a more well-rounded term for me. It's something that refers more to not only do we have money, not only can we look at a system and say, okay, is there value here? We have people that are much better at that than I am, thankfully. But then we also have uh, the ability to not just throw money at the problem, but come in and say, look, we get it. We've been there in the trenches. Let's figure out how to build long-term value and do it in a way that does not take away the long-term investment, because that's our goal. Is we want to be partners for the long haul. Sure. Yeah, well, it starts with the founder, or the team behind it, because there's plenty of good ideas out there. There aren't a lot of good executors and people who are passionate enough to put up with the bullshit of, all the things that are going to pop up on the roller coaster of building a company. So, what we're looking for is people that have a pretty good track record of being decent human beings who do their best, and they try not to get too far out over their skis, but at the same time, um, they're trusted operators in their space. And so that's kind of where we start. And then once we have that, then as well as the idea lined up, like the two projects we just signed, actually, one is a beehive tracking app that allows all these different hive owners to share information, which was something that was holding back the beekeeping community. And the beekeeping community is extremely important to our ecosystem and our ability to survive on this planet. So if we can find a way to crowdsource information so that they can have a better harvest and they can more easily support their hives, that's pretty cool. So yeah, there's a lot of money to be made in that. It's a huge industry, but also at the same time, it's something that's going to support humanity's existence. So that seems kind of cool. So you're looking for the mission behind, the purpose behind the thing. And again, that doesn't always come down to raw dollars in the beginning. That a lot of that comes down to operational excellence and people who really who are trusted in the space, because that's the thing that opens doors. People don't care about your product or your company; they care a lot more about your story and who you are as a person. And so, if you have that ability to authentically communicate that, you're going to do a lot better than your competitors in the market for a lot less. I'd say start spending money and gathering data, and you don't have to spend a lot. Spend a little bit, test your theories, test your approach, but before you start throwing money, spend a couple days, maybe a week, working on what do I need to know most about my client or my customer, and what does my customer need to know most about me, and how do I communicate that in a funnel that doesn't feel like a salesy funnel. It feels like I'm educating you across the finish line. And if you can do that, and then if you can find the right sources of leads, you can start spending very small amounts of money just testing and seeing what works. And from there, double down on what works. And once you have somebody's email, you can communicate with them as much as you need to, as long as you respect that relationship and don't fill their inbox with crap. Uh, you know, there's really good opportunities there for growth. Yeah, james at overlang.com, or you can find me on LinkedIn. Pretty accessible. I try to respond to every message I get. It might take me a while sometimes, but I always get around to them. And some of the best conversations I've had, both for me selfishly, but also for other people, I hope, um, have come from just these random reach outs of like, I have this challenge. I'm trying to figure this out. Can you help me? And that's kind of led to some really cool insights and things that really help you fast forward to success. That's us.